Hello, watercolor painters. This is a painting we'll be doing. Actually, we might even be painting this. This is SITGAS in Barcelona. This is the drawing. Um, Now, this would probably take a little longer than an hour because I had to draw this. So I would probably say there's about like an hour and 20 minutes of painting. So right now what we're doing is, now I'm not there. I'm painting from a little picture. But you would approach it basically the same way. Start with a good pencil drawing. You don't have to do this exact scene. It could be a part of the beach, but I chose to do this little complex on that point that's jutting out into the water there. The colors I'm using, it's not wet into wet. It was just a straight wash of cerulean blue and ultramarine blue. I got a little lighter as I came to uh, the horizon line, right? Now it's not perfect, it's not airbrushed, but what I'm trying to do here is looking for the lights and the dark. So my next step is trying to find the shadow color. So I'm going to use a little bit of the same color we use for the sky, but I'm going to add a little bit of making almost like a purpley color. Because if we look at the reference picture, we can see that it has a little bit of purple in it. So we're painting in basically all the shadow shapes. So I'm just painting around. If there's any areas that are getting light, I'm leaving them alone. I'm just going to almost paint just the shadow shapes in the buildings, and that's it. I don't want to overdo anything, and I want to keep them all pretty much the same. Even in those little spires up there, those little tower things. Now, in some areas it gets a little darker, so I'm just going to add a little bit more of the same color, which basically is ultramarine blue, burnt umber, cerulean blue, and now I'm adding a touch of burnt sienna. You can almost see like and we're going to go over this again because this is just our first wash. So when this dries, and when we paint outdoors, 70 degrees, this wash will dry in minutes, so we can go over it again. You'll see that I use my blow dryer and just give it a shot, an extra shot of just hot air, just to speed things up because I'm in an air-conditioned room doing this. All right, so now that we have the brown, now we notice that that little seawall is a little darker. All I did was add burnt umber and ultramarine blue. I just needed something dark to get that seawall nice and rich. And we will be going over that again. That's not the final wash, okay? We're just trying to get a feel for the lights and the darks. Now try not to go too dark too soon, because we want to make some subtleties in the shadow. You'll see what I mean in a minute. So here now we're going back and I'm painting that little tower shape. And you can see that there's some little lights and things popping through. Don't feel like you have to paint it perfectly, flat. Try to let some of those little pieces. Now here, I felt it was a little too dark, so I took my brush, took all the paint off, and just lifted that color up. So now it's a little more translucent, right? So it looks like there's a little more air in that shadow. So we want to try to recreate this bright, sunny, cloudless day. Now here again, I'm going around basically the same color I started with. You can see that little wash on the right hand side. That's basically the same color I used originally, which was ultramarine blue, cerulean blue, and a touch of alizarin crimson to make it look like it had a purpley feel to it. Okay, so moving right along, you'll see that I kind of stay within the shadow shapes and keep them pretty dark. Those dark shadow shapes are burnt umber and ultramarine blue. So whenever you see something that gets a little darker, just like what I just did, that is definitely burnt umber and ultramarine blue. Sometimes it's more blue, sometimes it's more burnt umber, which is kind of like a brownish color. So we're back into making some little variations, windows, creating some little detail. I'm not adding too much. I'm not spending too much time on the windows. You'll see that all they are like these little marks. Even the bigger windows, they just look like inverted L shapes, really, um, and turned around. So like just like here. That's it. That's all you have to do. You're creating almost a shadow shape that will be like the inset of a window. All right, so now here, I want to get some of these areas a little darker. The windows, I don't know if you noticed, but I did use a little bit of the white. You don't have to do that unless you want it a little more blue. That's why I put a little white in that cerulean blue to give it that reflection in the windows, okay? So here we're going again. Now that brown just wasn't strong enough. I just didn't feel that strong shadow. And chances are we'll have to go back at that again. Now I'm painting from a photograph. When we're there, you're not going to be subject to a photo. You'll see things, if we're blessed with a nice clear day, you'll have pretty much the same scene if you decide to paint this. If we do paint this area at all. So this is right on the beach. This vantage point was probably taken, I think I saw a picture of this further back, and I think there was another structure a little bit further away. And there was a lot of little seagulls around that you can paint in. You'll probably see them flying around. Whenever you have a beach, there'll be seagulls. Now look at the windows. They're just little rectangle squares, elongated squares. Not a lot of detail here. That shadow that you see on that building right there, all the way to the right, that is still the same colors that we used, just a little bit more saturated. So that's another thing we have to consider, is that some of your washes will be transparent, but some will be a little thicker and a little bit more opaque, or saturated in this case. Okay, so you can see now I'm looking for little details. I'm seeing that there's some dark shadows that are just, kind of streaming through. This is a low light situation. You could tell by the light on the, the left side coming in so strong. So this had to be taken probably with the lack of people around. I would think this was probably early morning. Usually you would see people on the beach, especially at sunset. So I have a feeling this was a sunrise picture taken by an early bird. This is not my picture, so. But I just thought it was a nice breakup of light and shadow. Now here, the palm trees are interesting. They have these long trunks on some of them. The one in the mid, kind of like a third of the way in, or that's just a big blob, kind of with little arms on it. And I just painted the first wash a little lighter green, and just a few little brush strokes just to indicate the shadow. The idea here is not to go too detailed on anything. We want to indicate, not illustrate our detail. Now here I am with the white, and I'm seeing, okay, let's pop in some little opaque-ish blue into those shadows. I'm sorry, into those windows, just to indicate that that's getting light. Those windows are picking up ambient light from the sky. And basically that's what's really happening when you look at the picture. The windows are brighter because they're picking up light, and they're in the shadow, so they're going to look illuminated. So that's what you do. You could use China white. I happen to use the Dr. Martin's bleed proof white. You can use Pro white. It's all the same. All we're doing is just adding a little opacity to that blue just so we can see it. Now the water. Now this is it's almost like a whole other painting. So we got through with all the architectural stuff. Now we're going to do the fun things. Now the water, if you notice that there is a nice a nice highlight coming from that broad side all the way to the left of the building complex there. And that was a dry brush going in from left to right, and then another dry brush effect going from right to left. So you have to try to get a nice happy medium in between, Try not to overstate it. Try, if you feel you need to practice a little bit, get a little scrap piece of paper and wet the brush, saturate the brush, and just take a little bit of paint off until you get the desired effect. It really is a practice thing. You got to feel it out. But once you get it, you get it. And then you can do these beautiful dry brush effects, especially on water. This painting happens to be 11 by 14. You still can see, you know, at this scale. I mean, if it was a big painting, I'd probably have to use a bigger brush to get larger dry brush shapes. But since it's small, that works. Now I'm going over it. Now, what is the color of the water? Same color as the sky. It's just reflecting. So it's cerulean blue and ultramarine blue. Now you'll see that there's some warm color. That warm color, by the way, if I didn't state that, that was burnt sienna and a little bit of cadmium orange in the shadows and in the light too. So if I didn't get that, if you wanted to follow along, you definitely can. What I'll do is I'll include the reference picture in the email, so you'll have it if you wanted to do just a little study, or you know, just watch this. Now this video is going to be here on YouTube. You'll be able to see this whenever you want, even there. So I've had students refer to these demos like the night before we would go out painting, just as a little refresher. So and these are usually the places that we're going to go to paint, or places that we're simply going to stay. I think we're on the outskirts of SITGAS, not in that complex there. I don't really know how big that city is. Doesn't look too big to me, but there's probably some stores in there, I would assume, maybe hotels. So now that the browns that I'm using are the same colors that I used. Again, it's burnt sienna. It's a little orange, cadmium orange, to get a little richer, intense color. But the blues here are still the same blues. I think I'm adding just a little bit more dark, like a burnt umber, just to get some dark, like the illusion of wet sand over there. Here we go with the, this is blue, and I'm just going around looking to find just some color, like where the sea foam is, and just really dotting it. I'm not trying to get too much detail in here. Now, that's a little reflection from that little building right there, that little rectangular shape. I just thought that was not, it's not in the reference picture, but I just thought it might work in there. And now I'm drying everything out. Now with the white, I'm going around and looking for areas where I can make wave shapes, right? So I'm going back over with the white to create a dry brush effect. And I think we're almost done here. Well, maybe not. Maybe there's a few little accent points here. So that seawall, again, I think this is the third wash. I really wanted to get that nice and dark and rich. And here's the final picture. So I think there was a little cropped out here, but you can see basically a little bit more detail. You can actually see the pencil underneath. That's not a bad thing, especially when we're painting outside. In alla prima plein air painting, that's totally acceptable. All right, so I think we have it all. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in Barcelona.